Everybody, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? I hope all of you are doing well. If you get anything from my work, please please share, and please subscribe if you haven't done so already. It's getting to a point in society that we need inference. We need to hear and read and discover other things in the one book paradigm. A lot of people still hanging on to certain concepts and certain things that you just need to start having an open mind. So if you get anything from my work, an epiphany, a connect the dot, a mind-blown moment, a new author to read, a new book to explore, please consider supporting my work, and all the links for that is at the bottom of the description. I also want to say that any of these things that I am reading, you can find. So if you would like to read it for yourself, because maybe my observations might be different from yours, but you still resonate with the book, great. Go support the authors and the people. They put a lot of hard work into these things. Anywho, The Secret Teachers of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. The last time we went into flowers and trees and all kinds of fun other stuff. This chapter is about stones, metals, and gems. This should be really interesting. I always like to see how and what direction he takes these objects and these items in, and I bet you this is going to be a juicy chapter. Each of the four primary elements, as taught by the early philosophers, has its analog in the quaternary terrestrial constitution of man. It already sounds like an epic journey here. The rocks and earth correspond to the bones and flesh, the water to various fluids, the air to the gases, and the fire to the bodily heat. Since the bones are the framework that sustains the corporeal structure, that they be regarded as fitting emblem of the spirit, that divine foundation which supports the composite fabric of mind, soul, and body. To the initiate, the skeleton of death, holding in bony fingers the reaper's skiff, denotes Saturn, Kronos, the father of the gods, carrying the sickle with which he mutilated Uranus, his own sire. In the language of the mysteries, the spirits of men are the powdered bones of Saturn. The later deity was also worshipped under the symbol of the base or footing, inasmuch as he was considered to be the substructure upholding creation. The myth of Saturn has its historical basis in the fragmentary records preserved by the early Greeks and Phoenicians concerning the king by that name who ruled over the ancient continent of Hyperborea. Polaris, Hyperborea, and Atlantis, because they lie buried beneath the continents and oceans of the modern world, we have frequently been symbolized as rocks supporting upon their broad surfaces new lands, races, and empires. According to the Scandinavian mysteries, the stones and cliffs were formed from the bone of Ymir, the primordial giant of the seething clay, while to the Hellenic mystics, the rocks were the bones of the great mother Gaia. After the deluge, sent by the gods to destroy mankind at the close of the Iron Age, only Deucalion and Pariah were left alive, entering a ruined sanctuary to pray. They were directed by an oracle to depart from the temple, and with heads veiled and garments unbound, cast behind them the bones of their mother, construing the cryptic message of the god to mean that the earth was the great mother of all creatures. Deucalion picked up loose rocks and bidding Pyra do likewise, cast it behind them. From these rocks they sprang forth a new and stalwart race of human beings. The rocks thrown by Deucalion becoming men, and those thrown by Pyra becoming women. And this allegory is epitomized the mystery of human evolution, for spirit by ensouling matter becomes that indwelling power which gradually but subsequently raises the mineral to the status of the plant to the plane of the animal to the dignity of man, and man to the estate of the gods. The solar system was organized by forces operating inward from the great ring of Saturn sphere, and since the beginnings of all things were under the control of Saturn, the most reasonable inference is that the first forms of worship were dedicated to him and his peculiar symbol, the stone. Thus, the intrinsic nature of Saturn is synonymous with the spiritual rock, which is the enduring foundation of the solar temple, and has its antitype or lower octave in the terrestrial rock, the planet Earth, which sustains upon its jagged surface the diversified genera of mundane life. Although its origin is uncertain, litholatry undoubtedly constitutes one of the earliest forms of religious expression. Quote, throughout all the world, end quote, writes Geoffrey Higgins, quote, the first object of idolatry seems to have been a plain unwrought stone placed in the ground as an emblem of the generative or procreative powers of nature, end quote. See the Celtic Druids. Remnants of the stone worship are distributed over the great part of the Earth's surface. A notable example being the menhirs of Carnac in Brittany, where several thousand gigantic uncut stones are arranged in 11 orderly rows. Many of these monoliths stand over 20 feet out of the sand in which they are embedded, and it has been calculated that some of the larger ones weigh as much as 250,000 pounds. By some, it is believed that certain of the menhirs mark the location of buried treasure, but the most plausible view is that which regards Carnac as a monument to the astronomical knowledge of antiquity. Scattered throughout the British Isles in Europe, these cairns, dolmens, menhirs, and I'm going to butcher this word, and I do apologize, Christvens stand as mute but eloquent testimonials to the existence and achievements of races now extinct. Of particular interest are the rocking or Logan stones, which evince the mechanical skill of these early peoples. These relics consist of enormous boulders poised upon one or two small points in such a manner that the slightest pressure will sway them, but the greatest effort is not sufficient to overthrow them. These were called living stones by the Greeks and Latins, the most famous one being the Gygorian stone in the Strait of Gibraltar, though so perfectly balanced that it could be moved with the stalk of a daffold. This rock could not be upset by the combined weight of any man. There is a legend that Hercules raised a rocking stone over the graves of the two sons of Boreas, whom he had killed in combat. The stone was so delicately poised that it swayed back and forth with the wind, but no application of force could overturn it. A number of Logan stones have been found in Britain, traces of one no longer standing having been discovered in Stonehenge. It is interesting to note that the green stones forming the inner ring of Stonehenge are believed to have been brought from Africa. In many cases, the monoliths were without carving or inscription, for they undoubtedly antedate both the use of tools and the art of writing. In some instances, the stones have been true into columns or obelisks, as in the runic monuments and the Hindu lingrams. and Sakti stones. In other instances, they are fashioned into rough likenesses of the human body, as in Easter Island statues or in the elaborately sculptured figures of the Central American Indians of the Khmers of Cambodia. The first rough stone images can hardly be considered in effigies of any particular deity, but rather as a crude effort of primitive man to portray in the enduring qualities of stone the procreative attributes of abstract divinity. An instinctive recognition of the stability of deity has persisted through all the intervening ages between primitive man and modern civilization. Ample proof of the survival of litholatry in the Christian faith is furnished by the allusions to the rock of refuge, the rock upon which the Church of Christ was to be founded, the cornerstone which the builders rejected, Jacob's stony pillow, which he set up and anointed with oil, the sling stone of David, the rock Morah, upon which the altar of King Solomon's temple was erected, the white stone of revelation, and the rock of ages. Stones were highly venerated by prehistoric people primitively because of the usefulness. Jagged bits of stone were probably man's first weapons. Rocky cliffs and crags constituted his first fortifications, and from these vantage points, he hurled loose boulders down upon marauders. In caverns or rude huts fashioned from slabs of rock, the first humans protected themselves from the rigors of the elements. Stones were set up as markers and monuments to primitive achievement. They were also placed upon the graves of the dead, probably as a precautionary measure to prevent the depredations of wild beasts. During migrations, it was apparently customary for primitive peoples to carry about with them stones taken from their original habitat. As the homeland or birthplace of a race was considered sacred, these stones were emblematic of the universal regard shared by all nations for the place of their geniture. The discovery that fire could be produced by striking together two pieces of stone augmented men's reverence for stones, but ultimately, hereto unsuspected world of wonders opened by the newly discovered element of fire caused priolatry to supplement stone worship. The dark, cold father stone gave birth out of itself to the bright, glowing sun, fire, and the newly born flame, by displacing its parent, became the most impressive and mysterious of all religio-philosophic symbols, widespread and enduring through the ages. The body of everything was likened to a rock, true either into a cube or more ornately chiseled to form a pedestal, while the spirit of everything was likened to the elaborately carved figure surmounting it. Accordingly, altars were erected as a symbol of the lower world, and fires were kept burning upon them to represent the spiritual essence, illuminating the body it surmounted. The square is actually one surface of a cube, its corresponding figure in plane geometry, and its proper philosophic symbol. Consequently, when considering the earth as an element and not as a body, the Greeks, Brahmins, and Egyptians always referred to it as four corners, although they were fully aware that the planet itself was a sphere. Because their doctrines were the sure foundation of all knowledge and the first step in the attainment of conscious immortality, the mysteries were often represented as cubical or pyramidal stones. Conversely, these stones themselves became the emblem of the condition of self-achieved godhood. The unchangeability of the stone made it appropriate emblem of God, the immovable and unchangeable source of existence, and also the divine sciences, the eternal revelation of himself to mankind. As the personification of rational intellect, which is the true foundation of human life, Mercury or Hermes was symbolized in a like manner. Square or cylindrical pillars surmounted by a bearded head of Hermes and called Herme were set up in public places. Terminus, a form of Jupiter and god of boundaries and highways, from whose name is derived the modern word terminal, was also symbolized by an upright stone, sometimes ornamented with the head of a god, which was placed at the borders of provinces and intersections of important roads. The philosopher's stone is really the philosophical stone, for philosophy is truly likened to a magic jewel whose touch transmutes base substances into priceless gems like itself. Wisdom is the alchemist's powder of projection, which transforms many thousands of times its own weight of gross ignorance into the precious substance of enlightenment. There's your philosopher's stone, because I agree with that. The tables of the law. Well, upon the heights of Mount Sinai, Moses received from Jehovah 2 tablets bearing the characters of the Decalogue, traced by the very finger of Israel's God. Pause. Israel's God. Then what's Jehovah? Dig that. These tables were fashioned from the divine sapphire Scythenia, I know I'm butchering that, which the Most High, after removing from his own throne, had cast into the abyss to become the foundation of generator of the worlds. This sacred stone, formed of heavenly dew, was sundered by the breath of God, and upon the 2 parts were drawn in black fire the figures of the law. I'm going to have to fight through reading through this, guys. I am very sorry. This is just repel words. These precious inscriptions, aglow with celestial splendor, were delivered by the Lord of the Sabbath day into the hands of Moses, who was able to read the illumined letters from the reverse side because the transparency of the great jewel. See the secret doctrine in Israel or the Zohar for details of this legend. The 10 Commandments are the 10 shining gems placed by the Holy One in the sapphire sea of being. And in the depths of matter, the reflections of these jewels are seen as the laws governing the sublunary spheres. They are the sacred 10 by which the supreme deity has stamped his will upon the face of nature. The same decad was celebrated by the Pythagoreans under the form of the tetrax, that triangle of spermatic points, which reveals to the initiated the whole working of the cosmic scheme, for 10 is a number of perfection, the key to creation and the proper symbol of God, man, and the universe. Because of the idolatry of the Israelites, Moses deemed the people unworthy to receive the sapphire tablets. Hence, he destroyed them, that the mysteries of Jehovah could not be violated. For the original set, Moses substituted 2 tablets of rough stone into the surface of which he had cut 10 ancient letters. While the former tablets, partaking of the divinity of the tree of life, blazoned forth eternal verities, the latter partaking of the nature of the tree of good and evil, revealed only temporal truths. Thus, the ancient tradition of Israel returned again to heaven, leaving only its shadow with the children of the 12 tribes. One of the 2 tablets of stone delivered by lawgiver to his followers stood for the oral and the other for the written traditions upon which the rabbinical school was founded. Authorities differ widely as to the size and substance of the inferior tablets. Some describe them as being so small that they could be held in the hollow of a man's hand. Others declare that each table was 10 or 12 cubits in length, of enormous weight. A few even deny that the tablets were of stone, maintaining that they were of a wood called cedar, which according to the Mohammedans grows profusely in paradise. The two tables signify respectively the superior and the inferior worlds, the paternal and the maternal formative principles in their undivided state. They represent the cosmic androgyny. The breaking of the tables signifies obscurely the separation of the superior and the inferior spheres, and also the division of the sexes. In the religious processionals of the Greeks and Egyptians, an ark or a ship was carried which contained stone tablets, cones, and vessels of various shapes emblematic of the procreative process. The ark of the Israelites, which were patterned after the sacred chests of Isaac, the Isaic mysteries, contained three holy objects, each having an important phallic interpretation. The pot of manna, the rod of budded, and the tablets of law, the first, second, and third principles of the creative triad. The manna, the blossoming staff, and the stone tablets are also appropriated image, respectively, of the Kabbalah, the Mishnah, and the written law, the spirit, soul, and body of Judaism. When placed in King Solomon's everlasting house, the Ark of the Covenant contained only the tablets of the law. Does this indicate that even at the early date, the secret tradition had been lost and the letter of the revelation alone remained? As representing the power that fabricated the lower or demiurgic sphere, the tablets of stone were sacred to Jehovah in contradistinction to the tablets of sapphire that signified the potency that established the higher or celestial sphere. Without doubt, the Mosaic tablets have their prototype in the stone pillars or obelisks placed on either side of the entrance to the pagan temples. These columns may pertain to that remote time when men worshiped the Creator through his astrological sign of Gemini, the symbol of which is still the phallic pillars of the celestial twins. The Ten Commandments, writes Hargrave Jennings, are as inscribed in two groups of 5 each in columnar form. The 5 to the right, looking from the altar, mean the law. The 5 to the left mean the prophets. The right stone is masculine, the left stone is feminine. They correspond to the 2 disjointed pillars of stone or towers in front of every cathedral and of every temple in the heathen times. See the Rosicrucians, their rites and mysteries. The same author states that the law is masculine because it was delivered direct from the deity, while the prophets or gospels were feminine because born through the nature of man. The right tablet of the law further signifies Yakin, the white pillar of light. The left tablet, Boaz, the shadowy pillar of darkness. These were the names of the 2 pillars cast from brass set up on the porch of King Solomon's temple. They were 18 cubits in height and beautifully ornamented with wreaths of chain work, nets, and pomegranates. On the top of each pillar was a large bowl, now erroneously called a ball or a globe, one of the bowls probably containing fire and the other water. The celestial globe, originally the bowl of fire, surmounting the right-hand column, Yakin, symbolized the divine man. The terrestrial globe, the bowl of water, surmounting the left column, Boaz, signified the earthly man. These 2 pillars respectively connote also the active and the passive expressions of divine energy. The sun and the moon, sulfur and salt, good and bad, light and darkness. Between them is the door leading into the house of God, and standing thus at the gates of the sanctuary, there are a reminder that Jehovah is both an androgynous and an anthropomorphic deity. As two parallel columns that denote the zodiacal signs of Cancer and Capricorn, which were formerly placed in the chamber of initiation to represent birth and death, the extremes of physical life, they accordingly signify the summer and winter solstices, now known to the Freemasons under the comparatively modern appellation of the two St. Johns. In the mysterious Sephardic tree of the Jews, these two pillars symbolize mercy and severity. Standing before the gate of King Solomon's temple, these columns had the same symbol import of the obelisks before the sanctuaries of Egypt. When interpreted Kabbalistically, the names of the two pillars mean, "In strength shall my house be established." In the splendor of mental and spiritual illumination, the high priest stood between the pillars as a mute witness to the perfect virtue of equilibrium, that hypothetical point equidistant from all extremes. He thus personified the divine nature of man in the midst of his compound constitution, the mysterious Pythagorean monad in the presence of the duad. On one side towered the stupendous column of the intellect, on the other the brazen pillar of the flesh. Midway between these two stands a glorified wise man, but he cannot reach his high estate without first suffering upon the cross made by joining these pillars together. The early Jews occasionally represented the two pillars of Jachin and Boaz as the legs of Jehovah, therefore signifying the modern philosopher that wisdom and love, in their most exalted sense, support the whole order of creation, both mundane and supramundane. The Holy Grail. Like the sapphire, the lapis lazuli, crown jewel of the archangel Lucifer, fell from heaven. Michael, archangel of the sun and the hidden God of Israel, at the head of the angelic host, swooped down upon Lucifer and his legions of rebellious spirits. During the conflict, Michael, with his flaming sword, struck the flashing lapis lazuli from the coronet of his adversary, and the green stone fell through all the celestial rings in the dark and immeasurable abyss. Out of Lucifer's radiant gem was fashioned the Sangreal, or Holy Grail, from which Christ is said to have drunk at the Last Supper. Though some controversy exists as to whether the Grail was a cup or a platter, it is generally depicted in art as a chalice of considerable size and unusual beauty. According to the legend, Joseph of Arimathea brought the Grail cup to the place of the crucifixion, and it caught the blood pouring from the wounds of the dying Nazarene. Later, Joseph, who had become custodian of the sacred relics, the Sangreal and the spear of Longinus, sorry guys, I can't project today that well, carried them into distant country. According to one version, his descendants finally placed these relics in Glastonbury Abbey in England. According to another, in a wonderful castle on Mount Salvant, Spain, built by angels in a single night, under the name of Prester John Parsifal. The last of the Grail kings carried the holy cup with him into India, and it disappeared forever from the Western world. Subsequent search for the Sangreal was the motif for such of the night entry of the Arthurian legends and the ceremonials of the Round Table. No adequate interpretation has ever been given to the Grail mysteries. Some believe the Knights of the Holy Grail to have been a wonderful organization of Christian mystics, perpetuating the ancient wisdom under the rituals and sacraments of the ocular cup. The quest for the Holy Grail is eternal search for truth, and Albert G. Mackey sees it as a variation of Masonic legend of lost word so long sought by the brethren of the craft. There is also evidence to support the claim that the story of the Grail is an elaboration of an early pagan nature myth, which has been preserved by reason of the subtle manner in which it was engrafted upon the cult of Christianity. From this particular viewpoint, the Holy Grail is undoubtedly a type of ark or vessel in which the life of the world is preserved, and therefore is significant of the body of the great Mother Nature. Its green color relates to the Venus and to the mystery of generation, also to the Islamic faith, whose sacred color is green and whose Sabbath is Friday, the day of Venus. The Holy Grail is a symbol both of the lower or irrational world and of the body nature of man, because both are receptacles for the living essences of the superior worlds. Such is the mystery of the redeeming blood, which, descending into the condition of death, overcomes the last enemy by ensouling all substances with its own immortality. To the Christian, whose mystic faith especially emphasizes the love element, the Holy Grail typifies the heart in which continually swirls the living water of eternal life. Moreover, to the Christian, the search for the Holy Grail is search for the real self, which, found, is the consummation of the magnum opus. The Holy Cup can be discovered only by those who have raised themselves above the limitations of sensuous existence. In his mystic poem, The Vision of Sir Launfal, sorry guys, James Russell Lowell discloses the true nature of the Holy Grail by showing that it is visible only to certain state of spiritual consciousness. Only upon returning from the vain pursuit of haughty ambition did the aged and broken knight see in the transformed leper's cup the glowing chalice of his lifelong dream. Some writers trance a similarity between the Grail legend and the stories of the martyred sun gods, whose blood, descending from heaven into earth, was caught in a cup of matter and liberated therefrom by the initiatory rites. These allergies. The Holy Grail may also be the seed pod so frequently employed in the ancient mysteries as an emblem of germination and resurrection. And if the cup-like shape of the Grail be derived from the flower, it signifies a regeneration and spiritualization of the generative forces in man. There are many accounts of stone images which, because of the substance entering into their composition and the ceremonials attended upon their construction, were ensouled by the divinities who they were created to resemble. To such images were ascribed various human faculties and powers, such as speech, thought, and even emotion. While renegade priests doubtless resort to trickery, an instance of which is related in a curious apophagic. I'm not going to get that out, guys. Sorry. Fragment entitled Bel and the Dragon, supposedly deleted from the end of the book of Daniel. Many of the phenomena recorded connection with sanctified statues and relics can hardly be explained unless the work of supernatural agencies be omitted. History records the existence of stones which, when struck, threw all who heard the sound into a state of ecstasy. There were also echoing images which whispered for hours after the room itself had become silent, and musical stones productive of the sweetest harmonies. In recognition of the sanctity which the Greeks and Latins ascribed to stones, they placed their hands upon certain consecrated pillars when taking an oath. In ancient times, stones played a part in determining the fate of accused persons, for it was customary for jurors to reach their verdicts by dropping pebbles into a bag. Divination by stones was often resorted by the Greeks, and Helena is said to have foretold by lithomancy and destruction of Troy. Many popular superstitions about stones survived the so-called Dark Ages. Chief among these is the one concerning the famous black stone in the seat of the coronation chair in Westminster Abbey, which is declared to be an actual rock used by Jacob as a pillow. The black stone also appears several times in religious symbolism. It was called helioglobus, a word presumably derived from Elagabalus. Yeah, moving on. Syro-Phoenician sun god. This stone was sacred to the sun and declared to possess great and diversified properties. The black stone in the Kaaba at Mecca is still revered throughout the Mohammedan world. It is said to have been white originally and such brilliancy that it could be seen many days' journey from Mecca. But as ages passed, it became blackened by the tears of the pilgrims and the sins of the world. So I do apologize about the pronunciations. I can't get my teeth to, no matter what I do, even with glue. And also, I got those Canadian wildfire, or what they're dubbing that, in my air. My air filter is working, but that's upstairs. So this is happening. Anywho, the magic of metals and gems. According to the teachings of the mysteries, the rays of the celestial bodies striking the crystallizing influence of the lower world become the various elements, partaking of the astral virtues of their source. These elements neutralize certain unbalanced forms of celestial activity, and when properly combined, contribute much to the well-being of man. Little is known today concerning these magical properties, but the modern world may yet find it profitable to consider the findings of the early philosophers who determined these relationships by extensive experimentation. Out of such research arose the practice of identifying the metals with the bones of the various deities. For example, the Egyptians, according to Manetho, considered iron to be the bone of Mars and the lodestone the bone of Horus. By analogy, lead would be the physical skeleton of Saturn, copper of Venus, quicksilver of Mercury, gold of the sun, silver of the moon, and antimony of the earth. It is possible that uranium will prove to be this metal of Uranus and radium to be the metal of Neptune. The four ages of Greek mystics, the Golden Age, the Silver Age, and the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age, are metaphoric expressions referring to the four major periods in the life of all things. In the divisions of the day, they signify dawn, midday, sunset, and midnight in the duration of God's men in the universes. They denote the periods of birth, growth, maturity, and decay. The Greek ages also bear a close correspondence to the four yugas of the Hindus: Katra Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, and the Kali Yuga, which I believe we're in right now. Their method of calculation is described by Olamondian as follows. In each of the 12 signs, there are 1,800 minutes. Multiply this by 12. You have 21,600. 1,800 times 12 equals 21,600. Multiply this 21,600 by 80, and you will get 1,728,000, which is a duration of the first age called Treta Yuga. If the same number be multiplied by 60, it will give 1,260,000 years of the age, second age, Treta Yuga. The same number multiplied by 40, 864,000, the length of the third age, Dvapara Yuga. The same multiplied by 20 gives 432,000, the fourth age, Kali Yuga. It will be noted that these multipliers decrease in inverse ratio by the Pythagorean t-tracts of 1, 2, 3, and 4. H.P. Blavatsky declares that Orpheus taught his followers how to affect a whole audience by means of lodestone, and the Pythagoras paid particular attention to the color and nature of precious stones. She adds, quote, the Buddhists assert that the sapphire produces peace of mind, equanimity, and chases all evils thoughts by establishing a healthy circulation in man. So does an electric battery, with its well-directed fluid, say our electricians. Quote, the sapphire, say the Buddhists, will open barred doors and dwellings for the spirit of man. It produces a desire for prayer and brings with it more peace than any other gem. But he who would wear it must lead a pure and holy life. This is in Isis Unveiled. Mythology abounds with accounts of magical rings and talismanic jewels. In the second book of his Republic, Plato describes a ring which, when the collect was turned inward, rendered its wearer invisible. With the Gyges, the shepherd secured for himself the throne of Lydia. Josephus also describes magical rings designed by Moses and King Solomon, and Aristotle mentions one which brought love and honor to the possessor. In his chapter dealing with the subject, Henry Cornelius Agrippa not only mentions the same ring, but states upon the authority of Philostratus Jacarus that Apollonius of Tyana extended his life over 130 years with the aid of 7 magical rings presented to him by an East Indian prince. Each of these 7 rings were set with a gem partaking of the nature of one of 7 ruling planets of the week. In the daily changing the rings, Apollonius protected himself against sickness and death by the intervention of the planetary influences. Sorry, guys. In my head, it's like Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings. And the philosopher also instructed his disciples in the virtues of these talismanic jewels, considering such information to be indispensable to the ergist. Agrippa describes the preparation of magical rings as follows. When any star planet ascends fortunately with the fortune aspect or conjunction of the moon, we must take a stone and herb that is under that star and make a ring of the metal that is suitable to this star. And in it fasten the stone, putting the herb or root under it, not omitting the inscription of images, names, and characters, as also proper suffumigations. See 3 books of occult philosophy. The ring has long been regarded as a symbol of attainment, perfection, and immortality. The last, because of the circlet of precious metal, had neither beginning nor end. In the mysteries, rings chased to resemble a serpent with its tail and its mouth were worn by the initiates as material evidence of the position reached by them in this order. Signet rings engraved with certain secret emblems were worn by the Hierophants, and it was not uncommon for a messenger to prove that he was the official representative of a prince or other dignitary by bringing with his message either an impression from his master's ring or the signet itself. The wedding ring originally was intended to imply that in the nature of the one who wore it, the state of equilibrium and completion had been obtained. This plain band of gold, therefore, bore witness of a union of the higher self God with the lower self nature, and the ceremony consummating the indisputable blending of divinity and humanity in one nature of the initiated mystic constituted the hermetic marriage of the mysteries. In describing the regalia of a magician, Officius Levi declares that on Sunday, the day of the sun, he should carry in his right hand a golden wand set with a ruby of chrysolite. On Monday, the day of the moon, he should wear a collar of 3 strands consisting of pearls, crystals, and selenites. On Tuesday, the day of Mars, he should carry a wand of magnetized steel and a ring of the same metal set with an amethyst. On Wednesday, the day of Mercury, he should wear a necklace of pearls or glass beads containing Mercury, and a ring set with an agate. On Thursday, the day of Jupiter, he should carry a wand of glass or resin and wear a ring with an emerald or a sapphire. On Friday, the day of Venus, he should carry a wand polished copper and wear a ring set with the turquoise and a crown of diadem decorated with lapis lazuli and beryl. And on Saturday, the day of Saturn, he should carry a wand ornamented with onyx stone, wearing a ring set with onyx, and a chain about the neck formed of lead. See the magical ritual of Sanctum Regalium. Persilius, Agrippa, Kircher, Lilly, and numerous other magicians and astrologers have tabulated the gems and stones corresponding to the various planets and zodiacal signs. The following list has been compiled from either their writings. To the sun is assigned the carbuncle, never heard of it. Ruby, garnet, especially the prio, and other fiery stones, sometimes the diamond to the moon, the pearl, selenite, and other forms of crystal to Saturn, the onyx, jasper, topaz, and sometimes the lapis lazuli to Jupiter, the sapphire, emerald, and marble to Mars, the amethyst, hyacinth, lodestone, and sometimes the diamond to Venus, the turquoise, beryl, emerald, and sometimes the pearl, alabaster, coral, and carnelian to Mercury, the chrysolite, agate, and vinaigrated marble. To the zodiac, the same authorities assign the following gems and stones: to Aries, the onyx, bloodstone, amethyst, and diamond; to Taurus, the carnelian, turquoise, hyacinth, sapphire, moss agate, and emerald; to Gemini, the topaz, agate, chrysoprase, crystal, and aquamarine; to Cancer, the topaz, chardonnay, black onyx, moonstone, pearl, cat's eye, crystal, and sometimes the emerald; to Leo, the jasper, sardonyx, beryl, ruby, chrysolite, amber, tourmaline, sometimes the diamond; to Virgo, the emerald, carnelian, jade, chrysolite, and sometimes the pink jasper and hyacinth; to Libra, the beryl, sardius, coral, lapis lazuli, opal, and sometimes the diamond; to Scorpio, the amethyst, beryl, sardonyx, aquamarine, carbuncle, lodestone, topaz, and malachite; to Sagittarius, the hyacinth, topaz, chrysolite, emerald, carbuncle, and turquoise; to Capricorn, the chrysoprase, ruby, malachite, black onyx, white onyx, jet, and moonstone; to Aquarius, the crystal, sapphire, garnet, zircon, and opal; to Pisces, the sapphire, jasper, chrysolite, moonstone, and amethyst. Both the magic mirror and the crystal ball are symbols little understood. Woe to the benighted mortal who accepts literally the story circulated occurring them. He will discover, often at the cost of sanity and health, that sorcery and philosophy, while often confused, have nothing in common. The Persian magi carried mirrors as an emblem of the material sphere, which reflects divinity from every part. The crystal ball, long misused as a medium for the cultivation of cyclical powers, is a threefold symbol. One, it signifies the crystalline universal egg in whose in whose transparent depths creation exists. Two, it is a proper figure of deity previous to its immersion in matter. Three, it signifies the etheric sphere of the world in whose translucent essences is impressed and preserved the perfect image of a terrestrial activity. Meteors or rocks from heaven were considered tokens of divine favor and enshrined as evidence as a pact between the gods and the community in which it fell. Curiously marked or chipped natural stones are occasionally found. In China, there is a slab of marble, that grain of which forms a perfect likeness of the Chinese dragon. The Amber Magru stone, chipped by nature into a close resemblance in a popular conception of the face of Christ, and I totally obliterated that word, is a remarkable that even the crown heads of Europe requested the privilege of beholding it. Stones of each nature.
Okay, I found this on the web.
I tried to finish this little section because it's done after this little word. And they're watching me. They're fucking listening to me. Bitch. It's Manly P. Hall. Get a grip. Did I call her name? Did I call her name? That makes me angry. Stones of such nature were beheld in the highest esteem among primitive peoples, and even today exert a wide influence upon the religiously minded. And that ends that chapter. So sorry for my little outburst right there, but I'm getting really sick and tired of doing readings, and then that little cunt pops up and blah, 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 when I didn't even call it. So before I send everybody off, the interesting thing about Manly P. Hall's writings about the Holy Grail, some of it is parallels some of the other authors that I read and people in the spiritual community who assign that the Holy Grail is your DNA, is your Christed Christos within yourself. It's the lineage that you came here from. It's your DNA. Many of these tools and these things are just emblematic, allegorical things that are having a heavier and harder truth for most people to even grasp because they think it's a cup. There might as well have been a cup, but the cup of what? Blood. What is in blood? Your DNA. So it's just very interesting there. There's a lot of things I wanted to insert, but I didn't because, again, these are just my perceptions, but I bounce in and out of Manly P. Hall's thinking because I think more esoterically. Okay, so hold on to your seats because this next chapter, which I'll read on the next video, ceremonial magic and sorcery with who other than Baphomet. Bum, bum, bum. So that will be the next chapter. I can't wait to read that one because holy crap. Gotta love him. So guys, I do apologize for the mispronunciations. My teeth are very, very loose. And my allergies. Just can't get certain things out. And it's not gonna come out properly. So I just might as well skip it instead of getting frustrated. Please, each and every one of you, have a safe upcoming weekend. There have been really damaging windstorms in my area, a little south of me, but it's bringing in a lot of not safe air to breathe. So this congestion is probably from that. Fun times. Sending each and every one of you love, light, love, and shielding. Hope everybody has a safe weekend upcoming. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That's a very easy way to help me get to more people. It sucks when you're not supported by the people that you think should be supporting you because you support them. Anywho, please that'd be great. And until the next time, guys, take everything in that chapter and think about it. 'Cause